follow while making the presentations.
All right, sir. So, next, we'll call upon the group from Devi Priya, Athira, and Krishna Rajiv. I guess Krishna Rajiv was here from the group. Others members who will be presenting?
So we all
Sir,
three
I will
have
present.
presented.
Okay. So who will be presenting?
Sir, we all three are presenting together, like each parts we will divide and take it. So I will screen share, sir.
Yeah, sure. Again, it is requested that whosoever is presenting may keep their videos feed on.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you may please start. You may keep your video feed on if possible.
Yes, sir. So, is it visible?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, all. So, ourselves, the second year BTech students of Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham, here to present a paper on contextual analysis on antenatal and postnatal effects of 2018 flood in Ernakulam districts in Kerala. So, this paper is basically based on a case study conducted by us. So, first of all, we all know that flood in the past year have immensely affected the life of common man in India, right? So many areas of India that were previously thought to be secure are now most vulnerable to floods and other natural disasters. So here we have mentioned some of the recent floods that occurred in India for the past few years. So the rate of flood is increasing steadily, and so as the death rates, right? And every year we can see here that Assam is ravaged by 3-4 waves of flood causing devastation of lives and property. So basically, in our paper, we are mainly focused on the 2018 flood in Kerala, mainly on the Ernakulam district. The state was struck by the biggest era of natural attack from nature in the year of 2018. This disaster struck hard at the livelihood of people without discriminating between rich or poor. Ernakulam district wasn't a flood-prone area till 2018, but in 2018, flood struck thousands of lives. The state was struck by flood mainly due to unpredicted heavy rain during the months of June, July, and August. The floods occurred mainly between 14th and 19th of August. Usually, Kerala receives moderate rainfall in the month of June to September, but during the month of June, the expected rainfall was 649.8 millimeter, whereas the actual rainfall received in 2018 was 749.6 millimeter, which led to a departure of 15%. In July, the actual rainfall was 857.4 millimeter, continued to be greater than the normal rainfall of 726.1 millimeter. During the first half of August, the expected rainfall was 287.6 millimeter. The amount received increased thrice, that is 758.6 millimeter, leading to 168% departure. This shows how drastically the water level increased in the state. Throughout the monsoon in 2018, the actual rainfall was 2,346.6 millimeter, which was twice the normal, that is 1,649.5 millimeter, within a total of 42% departure. To have a detailed observation about this, we conducted a survey in the Kadwal village. Moving on.
How it affected Ernakulam. Almost every part of the district was taken by water in the 2018 flood. District being the commercial hub of Kerala had enormous population, but not properly drafted disaster management plans or infrastructure with increasing population after the first warning from 2013. Ernakulam settlers was affected by leptospirosis, causing 500 fatalities amidst the flood, which took almost 12,000 people to rescue camps. Hence, we concentrated a small village from district Kaduwal village of Perumpavur Taluk for further study. We started with analyzing pre-post 2018 flood scenarios and then prepared a questionnaire consisting of 8 questions for the survey. The survey questions included whether do they have any water conservation methods, how badly flood affected them, whether they were informed properly, and even the type of yard in the forecourt was also observed. According to our observation, the tiled or concrete area in the last 3 decades increased by 90%. To understand the correlation of above operation aiding to flood, a simple experiment was done. We took 3 basins filled with properly settled soil and 3 beakers below to it. Basin 1 was left with soil, while basin 2 was paved with grass and basin 3 was tiled. 2 liters of water was poured to each of the basins. We observed that grass-paved basin let most water to penetrate and did a barrier for running water, while tile basin let only 15% of the water to penetrate, causing technically no barrier for the running water. Hence, we need remedies to reduce amount of
I'm afraid her voice is lost. So partners can continue maybe. Other members of the group can continue if they have, because her voice is gone. Athira, Krishna, who are there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So here mainly we are discussing about the experimental and both as well as the survey. So as she said, we have prepared a questionnaire and we conducted a survey, and we told that we conducted survey and found what kind of yard were there in particular houses. So to find more about that, we conducted an experiment in which. So can I share the slide once again?
Yeah, please. Yes, they are visible. Please go ahead. Anyone from the group is there who can go ahead with the presentation?
Oh, sorry, sir, I wasn't. Hello? Yes.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, as we said, we took 3 beakers in which one was with the grassy soil and the other one was tiled one. So according to the it was a simple experience with 3 beakers, and so 2 liters of water was poured into each of the containers and observations were recorded. So according to the observation, the grass paved containers which holds more water, and the other one, the water will penetrate to the one with grassy area. That is, it will be helping to penetrate more amount of water through that. Through the tiled one, it will be really difficult to penetrate the water. And the other one was the medium one. One was soil and the other was grass and the other one was the tile. So this was the conclusion that we made from the experiment. Now, moving on to the causes, one among the causes that we are talking about, one among the causes that is the southwest monsoon wind system, which was low pressure system that formed over the Bay of Bengal and Odisha. And the second one was, yes, of course, the improper alarming system. If there was something like an app or regular alarming system were there, we won't lose this many lives because we will be able to shift more people from the flood prone affected area. Then the next one is unethical construction. This is what we've actually found from our survey. That is, this Kadwal village, actually it wasn't populated as it was before in the previous years. When it became more populated, we know that they did tiling all over the yard, and they did, instead of letting it to be a natural soil or grasses, it was really difficult for them for the water to penetrate through that due to the tiling. And The improper drainage system is also one among the reasons, because as the population increased, the government wasn't able to maintain a proper drainage. Next, this is the methodology flow. So first, we studied about the pre and post effects of 2018 flood. Then we conducted a survey in the village and the experimental analysis. So observation part.
So in the results and observation part, we are dealing with what all things can be done for the situation that happened in Kerala in the past years. So study conducted showed us that it was a lack of preparing for the disaster by the people and the greed for the profit rather than life, where the officials tried to produce maximum amount of electricity, though the water levels in the dam were saturated. And the last main thing was less information about the latest level of rise. So in the next slide, in order to make this condition a little less vulnerable, we are dealing it with two methods mainly. Natural methods. It can be implemented by adopting many ways, like making sure of a good drainage system so as to allow rainwater to drain through soil and avoid flood plus the drought, and a good water trenching system, and reducing the tiling and concreting roads, thereby increasing grassing. And rather than constructing the strong compound walls, we must adopt fencing methods which won't obstruct the normal flow. We can reduce the flood up to an extent by allowing the rainwater to seep through soil and increase the groundwater level. So in the next slide, moving on to technical methods, how it can be executed. So we proposed an idea in the paper in which we can make a flood prediction app where the live updates can be received for the people. That is, the places can be separated based on rainfall under red, orange, and green signal. And this application can be unique if whoever has downloaded the app will receive a message which will help them to know in which zone they are. That is, when the zone is critical to the flood, the app will send them a message, you are in the red zone. So the mode of collection of data includes from public government websites either, or by using sensors which will record data indirectly into server. So basically an application of IoT. So the experiment can be done by using soil moisture sensors to detect and record the soil moisture level and predict the flood. And we can record the data using that if the average value exceeds the limit, there is a chance for a flood over that area. So in the last slide, our whole conclusion is based on the survey done from the Kaduwal village. If the natural and the technical methods are able to be adopted in some kind of ways, we can reduce the flood and have a proper disaster management. Thank you.
It's wonderful to see that our young participants are also writing papers and presenting in conferences. So I hope your teacher must have helped you for this case study to be done. Just a few points as you are mentioning regarding an app. There is already AI coming from Google itself, where they are covering more than 200 million people who are living on the coastline for the high flood levels and for the disasters which can come due to floods. The indication is already predicted with the Google AI mapping. So you can look into it. This, you can make a localized app that's always there. You can have more features added based on the geometry of Ernakulam, based on your own situation and the parameters which you can take. And further, a small advice from my side will be, as you will come to more research-oriented field, as you will gain more exposure to such conferences and such papers, you will get to know how to present it more thoroughly with scientific data. Right now, you have shown us the methodology part more rather than the data part. So if you are presenting your work in a conference or in some journal, you can try to focus more on different parameters and having an evaluation of those parameters and how they are modeling it, how we are predicting something based on those parameters. That will be more appreciated. But it's again a commendable effort being a second year students to come up with your experiment and the suggestions which you have given. Over to Dr. Rajiv.
Thank you, Dr. Tanmay. I wholeheartedly agree with Dr. Tanmay that this has been a fine presentation in the context that you are very new and just budding researchers. You're only in second year, and what you have, even your topic is much different from what we have experienced till now. Okay, so in that context, I must congratulate all the presenters who have made the presentations. Okay, and this is indeed good work, and particularly Kerala over the last few years have been really ravaged by a lot of floods coming. I think even this year there is a possibility. So I mean, we can understand that situation. I have only one question in this. I think one of the presenters mentioned that the road that we should build should not be concrete or paved ones. So, what materials do you think we should use? If you can just
So we were telling you that the bad effect is with tiling, not the mainly because of concrete. Yes, because when it is tiled, almost in the last week also I saw a problem regarding this, the tiling, effects of tiling. So what I was saying is, instead of tiling, yes, in old time onwards, tarring is there, and also water trenching method can be included along with this if we are tiling a road, so that we can help the water blockage to settle into the ground and seep through it.
Okay. Thank you. So I have no more questions regarding this. Now, if the other participants have any questions, you may please ask them. So I expect that there are no other questions regarding this presentation made. So once again, I would like to thank the presenters, okay, for the work that they are doing and the importance of the work in that context.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So thank you. So with this, now I would like to invite the next presenter, Mr. Shahbaz Asan. I think his paper ID number is 70, and his presentation topic is summer versus winter air pollutants variation for year 2019 and lockdown effect for year 2020 for CRRI Mathura Road Station, Delhi. Okay. And the other co-authors for his research papers are Shashi Tiwari, SM Huzaifa, Abdullah, Deepak Nadir, and Gaurav Kumar. Okay.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible, Mr.
Yeah.
Shahbaz. So please, you can make your presentation full screen and you can start.
Sir, it is full screen only.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Good afternoon, one and all. I hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. I, Shahbaz Hasan, really honored to be here today. I am student from Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies. I am going to present you all a presentation, and the topic is summer versus winter air pollutants variation for year 2019 and lockdown effect for year 2020. And my co-authors are Shashi Tiwari, Syed Muhammad Huzaifa, Deepak Nadir, and Gaurav Kumar. Now comes the contents. First introduction, then CPCB, air pollutants, method and data, result and analysis, conclusion and references. As we all know, pollution is the main reason for global warming, climatic change, smog effect in cities like Delhi. Burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil is responsible for 64% man-made global warming. So we have studied on 4 main pollutants, which are PM 2.5, PM 10, carbon monoxide, and ozone. In this study, we have collected data from CPCB. Now, what is CPCB? The CPCB of India is a organization under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It was established in 1974 under the Water Act 1974. The CPCB is also interested with the power and function under the Air Act 1981. As per CPCB, air quality standards AQI is categorized into 6 parts. AQI between 0 to 50 is considered good. 51 to 100 is satisfactory. 101 to 200 is moderate. 201 to 300 is poor. 301 to 400 is very poor. And between 401 to 500 is severe. Now the air pollutants. All 4 main air pollutants causes different health-related issues like throat and lung irritation, asthma attack, bronchitis to high blood pressure, heart attack, strokes, and chest pain for person with heart disease. Now, method and data. The data of different air pollution, PM 2.5, PM 10, CO, and ozone is collected from Central Pollution Control Board. There are total 40 stations in Delhi. The data shown here has been collected for Central Road Research Institute, Mathura Road, Delhi, monitoring station as shown in figure 1. The automatic monitoring system were installed to determine the concentration in the particulate matter PM 2.5, PM 10, and gaseous pollutant SO2, NO2, CO, and O3 at each site. The permissible concentration for particulate matter and gaseous pollutant are shown in table 1. Now the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. The current National Ambient Air Quality Standard were notified on 18th of November 2009 by the Central Pollution Control Board. Method of measurement are gravimetric method, TEMO, beta annotation, UV, photometric, non-dispersive infrared, which is also known as NDIR, and spectroscopy. Now comes the result and analysis. First, we have studied and compared the monthly data for 4 main air pollutants, PM 2.5, PM 10, carbon monoxide, and ozone for winter season and summer season month. During year 2019 summer month, PM 2.5 values are in the range of 40 to 80 microgram per cubic meter, while it rises to 200 micrograms per cubic meter during winter season. However, PM10 concentration is less during summer season compared to winter. But as we see a large hike of PM 2.5 pollutants from summer to winter season is not the case for PM10. On the other hand, interestingly, the ozone concentration is more during summer season, while carbon monoxide concentration is about 0 during both the season. Figure 1 shows the monthly variation during summer and winter month for year 2019. Now, effects of cracker burn on Diwali. In 2019, 27th of October was celebrated for Diwali festival. On the auspicious occasion, people do burn crackers. However, government had banned crackers strictly for year 2019, though. We have pollution rise during Diwali and its effect for almost 1 week due to non-dispersion of pollutants. Figure 2 shows the effect of crackers burn on Diwali. After 1 day of Diwali in October 2019, Delhi air quality rose sharply to severe health condition. Delhi showed PM 2.5 level up to 52.77 microgram per cubic meter. Now, decreases in air pollution during lockdown due to pandemic COVID in 2020. A massive decrease in air pollution has been observed in the month of April, May, and June 2020 and compared to 2019. As we all know, during this time, India was on a complete lockdown due to COVID-19. All the industries were shut down and the transportation was completely restricted, due to which there was a sudden decrease of air pollution in the atmosphere. During 2019, the PM10 concentration varies between 225 to 300 microgram per cubic meter, while in 2020 it remained between 110 to 150 microgram per cubic meter, which is almost 50% sharp reduction of year 2019. Similarly, PM 2.5 values remain between 40 to 50 microgram per cubic meter for year 2020, which is under permissible limit specified by CPCB as shown in table 1. Interestingly, ozone concentration is also reduced by 50% from 2019 to 2020, showing values between 18 to 25 microgram per cubic meter. However, pollutants, carbon monoxide concentration was very less in 2019 and 2020 and has no significant effect for Delhi NCR. Figure 3 and 2 shows the monthly variation of pollution without and with lockdown due to COVID-19 for year 2019 and 2020 respectively. Now, winter versus summer concentration. PM 2.5 concentration is increased from summer season to winter season by 1.4%, while PM10 values increased by 0.2% only. The carbon monoxide concentration haven't shown much variation seasonally. However, O3 concentration is more during summer season and decreased by 0.7% during winter. Table 2 shows the variation pollution for summer and winter month with concentration value in microgram per cubic meter. Now comes the conclusion. During winter season, due to atmospheric stability and less boundary layered, high pollutants does not disperse quickly and remain high for various days. PM10 concentration is almost high during both the season. The winter month PM2.5 concentration is double or more the value during summer season. The ozone concentration is high during summer season. However, carbon monoxide concentration is remained same during both the season, and after Diwali celebration for year 2019, peaks are shown for from 29th of October to 5th of November 2019. It remained in the atmosphere for almost 7 days. These are the references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shabas, for your wonderful study. A simple question is, where this data you have taken for the air pollutants?
Sir, CPCB.
Okay, so are there other studies published on it? What is your contribution then in the terms of this research paper?
Sir, actually, I am first author in this research paper. I have collected data from CPCB and do lots of research. मतलब कितना changes आ रहा है इसमें, मतलब कि लॉकडाउन की वजह से सर कितना changes आया.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is more of kind of data interpretation kind of a study, which you have taken, and then those causes has been shown over here, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Shabas, it's a nice attempt at the work that you are doing. If you could
Yes,
just share your slides again.
Okay, sir. Is it visible, sir?
Yes, it's becoming visible. So if we could just start from quickly scroll through your slides from the very beginning.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so this is title. This is fine. We can go to slide number 2.
Okay, sir.
This is fine. Slide number 3.
Yes, sir.
This is okay. You can come to the air quality index part where we have shown, right? You discussed something about air quality index, or you didn't present it in the material in this.
No, sir. It is not in the material.
Okay, so let's come to slide number 4.
Yes, sir.
Slide number 4 is CPCB. I wanted to look at that table that you had made, PM summer and winter.
Okay, sir. Wait a second. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, Mr. Shabas, if I just quickly from the top of my head, if I just look in summer and winter, the PM dispersion is somewhere around, the difference is somewhere around 4%, let's say somewhere around 3.5 times.
Yes, sir.
And from PM10 summer to winter is somewhere around, let's say about 1.2 something. So,
Yes, sir.
why this large variation in PM10 and PM2.5?
Sir, because of lockdown, sir. Sir.
No. That's
Yes,
see, in lockdown both is happening. There
Yes,
is a reduction in both.
Yes, sir.
But your reduction compared to in summer and winter here, this is not the lockdown. This is just summer to winter comparison.
Yes, sir.
So in winter, your
Yes, sir.
concentration of PM2.5 is almost 3.5 times of
Yes, sir.
PM2.5 in summer.
Yes,
But
sir.
your PM10 is somewhere only about 1.2 times. This is significantly less than PM2.5.
Yes,
So what
sir.
is the possible reason for that?
Sir.
See, I'll tell you because there are a couple of things that technically you should say, okay, and I'll just help you in that aspect.
Okay, sir.
So see, basically what happens is basically PM2.5 is lighter than PM10.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so what happens is during dispersion conditions,
Yes, sir.
okay, summer is highly preferable for dispersion conditions because you have the appropriate ambient temperature, sunlight, and all these wind speed, wind direction, and all these conditions are highly favorable for dispersion. So you get a higher dispersions in case of summer than compared to winter. And as you said rightly, in winter the temperature conditions, there is basically, it's called as the inverse conditions. If
Yes,
you
sir.
have studied the literature, you might know that the inverse conditions takes place during the winter because of the change in stability class. What happens? because as atmospheric conditions become stable in nature. If you want to go further into the details, you should go to the study the stability section in the atmospheric classification or in the atmospheric meteorology.
Yes.
There you will find that as per Pascal-Gifford's condition, your stability class becomes stable. If your stability class becomes stable, your dispersion of pollutants become minimum, because there is no wind speed, there is no wind direction, and the atmospheric condition is such that it does not allow any dispersion of wind. Okay, so that is does not allow the dispersion of pollutant. Okay, as a result of which, particularly due to this condition, your concentrations are highly exceeded in winter. So this is the reason why you have such differences in concentrations. And now, if you just come to the previous slide, slide number 11.
Yes, sir.
So now here you're comparing, I guess this is with the year 2019 with the
And
same
2020.
period for 2020,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
What would, this is okay.
Yes,
I
sir.
said this is a good comparison. What your comparison should also have been better is for the same year 2020,
Okay, sir.
okay,
Mhm.
if you had shown what is the variation 3 months before and 3 months after.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so this is something also you can incorporate. Then not only for that particular period year before, what is the intervening period before and after for that particular year also you can show. Okay,
Okay, sir.
and the reason you should mention is that basically the word that you should use, you said that there is a less of traffic activity and all these things,
Yes,
but
sir.
the actual technical word is less of anthropogenic activities.
Okay, sir.
Okay, because basically air pollution is due to two major sources. One is natural sources and the other is anthropogenic sources. So the anthropogenic sources are man-made. Okay, so whether it is industry, whether it is traffic, whether it is some other factors, all these are different. Whereas natural sources could be forest fires, volcanic or stubble burning, or whatever it might be taking places. Okay, so that is thing would be the anthropogenic sources. So that is important, and that is something you could also incorporate. The other thing is you have taken the CRRI Mathura station, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
what sort of a monitoring station is it as per the CPCB?
Sorry, sir.
What sort of a classification of monitoring station is it? You know that CPCB classifies all the monitoring station
Yes,
as
sir.
per
Yes, sir.
certain
Yes, sir.
requirements, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is basically for air quality monitoring.
No. Even in air quality monitoring, there are different classifications. Some monitoring stations will be classified as urban monitoring stations. Some monitoring stations will be classified as background monitoring stations.
Okay, sir.
Okay, background monitoring stations are those stations which have least effect of anthropogenic sources, as a result of which they are considered to be the concentrations due to natural conditions. Urban conditions is an influx of both natural as well as anthropogenic sources. So whenever you're studying about, whenever you're mentioning about this station, you should
Yes, sir.
always mention whether it is a background station, urban station, rural station. So you should always go through the CPCB classifications for that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. I must comment that this is a really good work that you are doing, because basically very recently I have done some work on this aspect, and so
Yes, sir.
so this is actually a good attempt at the work that you are doing. But this is these are few things that you should keep in mind. And finally, the other thing that I would say is that interpretation of air quality results from one monitoring station is often, leads to wrong conclusions. Okay, because unlike any other pollutants, air has a tendency to travel without any boundaries. Okay, so there is going to be some effects coming from other air pollution stations or pollution from other levels. Okay, so that is also, you should also look into a combination of different sites. So for example, you take a particular area, and if that particular area has 3 or 4 monitoring sites, take the data from those 3 or 4 monitoring sites and then further progress. Because often the results from one, if you just select one monitoring station, sometimes it has a possibility of leading to errors.
Okay, sir.
Because it means basically errors in the sense you cannot make proper conclusions. Okay, so for example, right now you're giving the number, no, right? Say it's 50,
Yes.
but this 50 might be due to the effect of some other pollutant sources that might be coming from other effect of other monitoring stations if they are nearby. So that is something that you should also take into consideration. Otherwise, it's a good work, it's a good attempt, and it's nicely done and nicely presented also.
Yes, sir.
But these are some of the things that probably you can incorporate further when you're doing further research in this aspect.
Yes, sir.
So these are only some of the few comments and suggestions that I had from my side. So if any other participant have any questions regarding this, please feel free to ask. Okay, so I don't think there are any more questions regarding this presentations. So now I would like to hand over to Dr. Tanmay, who could introduce the next
So
presenter.
the next presenter will be paper number 86, Kirina Rathod and Sudhanshu Dikshit. They will be presenting on the topic hydrodynamic modeling for identifying flood vulnerability zones in Mahi Lower Subbasin. Kirina, if you're there, yeah, you
Yes,
can make
sir.
it full
Yes.
screen. You can keep your video feed on and keep your this PPT in full screen.
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible and visible. You can make your full screen with the PPT and start.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for the introduction. Very good afternoon to one and all present here. Myself, Kirina Rathod from Gujarat Technological University. And I am very much thankful to all the committee members for giving me chance to present my research work. This topic comes under the theme of water resources and river basin management and sustainable cities. The co-author of this paper is Professor Sudhanshu Dikshit from have done MEWRE from SVNIT. So first, let us see the introduction part, which says that flood is the most frequent disaster and often defined as the overflow of water that submerges the land which is meant to be dry. As India is situated in the monsoon belt of South Asia, it has seen various damaging floods and its damaging effects in almost all sectors. Gujarat has also not been spared from the damaging effects of floods and has a long history of flood, including floods of 2006 and 2015 and 17 floods of Gujarat. So it is necessary for us to understand the dynamics related to this natural phenomena. Out of all types of flooding, river flooding is the most common one and occurs when a water body exceeds its capacity to hold the water. As we can see in this animation, it occurs due to heavy rainfall or inefficient capacity of the river channel. But with the proper management of river basin management, we can reduce the impact of it. Especially in Gujarat, almost all major rivers pass through flat terrains, and these flat terrains supports river flooding and often gets flooded in overtop condition of the river banks and start going into residential areas. Need of the study. As we all know that rivers are worshipped as mother in India, and these are the most preferred location for human settlements. These are the people who are most affected when river flooding occurs. But with the pre-planning pre-planning can significantly reduce the effect where a flood vulnerability assessment plays a significant role. What we can do is we can identify the flood hotspot and create early warning system which give people time to evacuate and go to safer location. For this, hydrodynamic modeling is done and it can be used as non-structural method to reduce flood damages. Methodology starts with the problem identification, selection of method in terms of HECRAS modeling and with geospatial techniques, selecting of study area which is Mahi Lower Subbasin, third major west flowing river of Gujarat, then collection of data of discharge data, rainfall data and water data from government agencies, and then pre-processing of data and creating model, and finally analyzing the result and identify the flood prone area. This is pre-processing of data in which digital elevation model is converted into digital terrain model for creating geometry in HackRace. There were 4 tiles falling in the study area which were converted into the single image, and it was georeferenced with the actual location with the base map of Google Map. Then the area of interest was extracted and a shapefile of watershed was created as an input in HackRace. So what is HackRace? HackRace is Hydrologic Engineering Center River Analysis System. In this software, we can create a model by opening a project, setting unit system, opening RAS mapper and create geometry, delineating river center line and cross section in 1 dimension as well as in 2 dimension. Then defining boundary condition, inputting flow data and running model for unsteady condition. In this study, flood event of 2006 is selected because we can see in this graph 2006 was the year when maximum discharge of 31,061 cumac was observed. HackRace of version 6 is used for river analysis, and hydrograph of 3-hour interval from August 11 to August 13 was simulated for this study. Then model calibration and validation was done for future use of these results. Then model development, 37.4 kilometer of river length was delineated using RAS mapper in HackRace, and then cross section at every 500 meter interval was digitized for unsteady flow analysis. In here we can see that blue color line shows the river center line, the red point shows the river bank station, and green color line shows the cross section cut lines, and there were total 74 cross section cut lines which were analyzed in this study. Now we have come to the part of cross-section analysis. In the left side figure, we can see that red point shows the bank station, and left bank elevation is 17.65, whereas the right bank elevation is 25.45 meter. When the flow was passed through this particular cross-section, we can identify that the depth of water was observed is 21.66 meter, which resulted into the left bank under overtopped condition. But as well as we can see that right bank is under safe condition. Likewise, we can analyze all the cross section. In here, we can see another cross section in which both the bank station are under inundation, having elevation of 17.65 meter and 22.99 meter. When the time series plot of water surface elevation was done for this particular cross section, it was found that maximum water surface elevation was observed with the value of 24.25 meter on 12th August at 12 p.m. So what we can analyze through this, the difference of elevation of bank station and the water surface elevation can be used as a reference, and can be used for protecting the river banks station either by increasing the levees height or by creating retaining walls. This is simulated flood depth showing hourly depth variation with different discharges. As we can show that as the time increases, the depth also increases. Here you can show as the time increases, depth also increases, and the water starts spilling the bank station and inundating low-lying areas nearby. The maximum depth observed was 24.33, and as the discharge starts decreasing from 12th August to 13 August, the depth also starts decreasing. This is the same maps with time stamping of different discharges and shows the situation of river in maximum discharge of 31,000 cumacs. These flood maps can be useful to find the area at risk of getting inundated and can be used for forecasting maps to create early warning system. The earlier presenters can use this data of my research and can maybe create their software of flood vulnerability zones prediction. So finally, after assessing all the parameters in this unsteady flow analysis, I have identified this much area pin out, which are Kherda Vasad Bridge and Sindrot Bridge, located between Anand city and Vadodara city. As we can see that Vasad Bridge is very heavily populated and incorporated traffic between Anand and Vadodara city. It is of much concern and we should take preventive measures for this area especially. In conclusion, I have found that simulated result of all the 74 cross section, 74.38% of total cross section are under inundation. In this pie chart, we can see that 20% of cross section having their right bank under critical condition and 9% of cross section have their left bank inundated. So low-lying area of Kherda, Rajupura and Sindrot village located between these two cities are identified as vulnerable zones. It is observed that the right bank of river near Vadodara city is more prone to water spill. This is because of the topography of Vadodara city. When the simulated result of water surface elevation was compared with the actual data collected from CWC, it was observed that the simulated results can be satisfactorily used for future upcoming floods to identify or to know the depth and water surface elevation to prior, so that we can get the which area are under risk and we can create flood warning system. So in the end, sustainable development of any city can be ensured by this unsteady flow analysis, and the result incorporated here can be useful for government agencies to take timely actions. These are the references, and thank you.
Thank you for such a nice presentation on an interesting topic that you are working on. So I would like to ask if any of the participants have any queries regarding the presentation made. Any queries from the presentation made? Okay. Ma'am, I have a couple of questions. This design that you have done is on the highest flood level, or this is at the highest flood conditions, 31,000 cumecs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you can just show me one of those cross-sectional figures. I just had one question from that cross-sectional figure, the first one that you showed, the
Yes, sir.
Levy. If you could just show me that slide.
Yes, sir. 1 second. This one?
Yes, this one only. See, on the left-hand side, your value is somewhere, say, 17.65, and on the right-hand side, the value is somewhere around 25.45. So the amount of water or this level that you have mentioned is almost the average of the left and the right-hand bank sides. Is that the way that it should generally happen? Because I think in the next slide, the values were somewhere a little bit different. So
no, sir, it is not like that. Different cross sections have different water surface elevation, and there is no such rule that water will be in the average value of these two bank station elevation. Because I
so
have
this is just a sort of an anomaly, or means just okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have analyzed all the 74 cross section, and there are different values of water surface elevation, which totally depends on the geometry and the river basin.
Okay. So in the end, okay, so what would you suggest as a practical applicability? You have seen that I think a couple of studies before also there was some flood related presentations regarding Kerala. So how would you suggest that your work could be, sort of applied there? So if you could just say in a couple of lines in how that could be done, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes, sir. As I have developed this model for my study area, that is Mahi River, they can develop the same model in their study area and find out which area are under risk and which area will get inundated for different discharges. So according to that results, they can develop various models or softwares or apps to know people to evacuate that area as early as possible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your nice and presentation. Okay, it was very well presented and very informative. Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. So with this, we move forward to the next presentation. Okay, and the next presentation will be presented by Mr. Kaushal Kumar. Okay, having the paper ID number 76, and the title of his presentation is Assessment of Potential Methane Generation from the Landfill Site of Municipal Solid Waste in Mohali. His other co-authors for this research paper are Rishi Rana, Abhinav Chaudhary, and Karma Yangzom. Okay, so now I would like to invite Mr. Kaushal to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. And good afternoon, everyone. Just a second, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. My topic for the presentation will be the assessment of potential methane generation from the landfill site of municipal solid waste in Mohali, as you have seen. So in this case, if you talk about the municipal solid waste and the methane gas that is related to this site, so for that case, if you see the rapid urbanization and the economic growth that is happening in the country, that is resulting in the huge amount of generation of municipal solid waste. And the infrastructure in our cities right now is not capable to take or to handle that amount of solid waste that is being generated. So most of them are going to the dump site after a very few recycling and reprocessing process. So what's happening when these municipal solid waste are going to the dump site, the organic content in that MSWs, they are biodegrading. So the biodegradation process may be from because of the aerobic condition or maybe because of the anaerobic condition. So based on that, certain gases that are emitted from the landfill sites. So if you talk about the methane generation, that is one of the uh, that is being generated from the landfill site. One of that is one of the source here. So ethernic fermentation, rice cultivation, wastewater handling, solid waste disposal, and fugitive emissions are some of the major sources of methane generation here in India. Now, this report has been said that there is an increase in 2% of the methane concentration in the world in last few decades. And if you look at the global warming potential of the methane, that is 20 times more as compared to, that is 20 times more compared to our standard carbon dioxide. So in this study, the methodology that we are going to follow, it will be first the site selection, that will be the Mohali city that we have taken into the consideration. In the next part, we're gonna study about the waste generation from in the Mohali city that is being going into the dump site. So that waste generation will be basically calculated, or that will be estimated based on the population growth in the city from the various period that the data which we saw later on. The next part is the physical characterization. So the part of the decomposable waste that is going into the land site, that we're going to study in the third case. Next one will be the methane generation potential based on the two methods which we are going to follow, the default method and the MTM or the modified triangular method. And at the end, we're gonna analyze and conclude the results. So if you talk about the generation of the waste in the Mohali city, so there are a few data which we are having, that is from 2015, 16 and 17. They have been calculated based on the population of the Mohali city as per 2011 population census. And in that case, we have calculated the waste, The average for the 3 years, that is 2015 to 17, as 0.48 kg per day. So if you look at this amount of waste that is being generated, so if you calculate the total waste that is there or that has been generated in the Mohali city in 2017 was at 54.48 gigagram. If you talk about the gigagram, means 10 to the power 3 tons. Okay, so it will be 54.48 gigagram for 2017, and 2020 it will be 56.27 gigagram. So all the waste that is being generated in the city, so like I have told you, about a few percentage of that waste being recycled and reused, but rest of the waste that is being dumped at the landfill site, because we don't have the infrastructure to, or infrastructure as well as the resources to process them. Now, if you talk about the physical characterization that has been done, so for that case, the MSW that has been generated in the Mohali city, they have been divided into three categories. So basically, the three categories are the high income group of population, mid income group of population, and the low income group of population. And from these sources, the waste that has been generated, they have been collected and they have been characterized for their physical characteristics. So in this case, these are some of the important findings that we have found, but the most important in this one is the compostable or the decomposable waste, that whose percentage, that if you see the third column, so the percentage of the compostable waste is around 46.7%. So this is the amount of waste that is going to landfill, that is going to get biodegraded in the presence of oxygen as well as in the presence of absence of oxygen. So aerobic and anaerobic condition. Now, once the physical characterization has been done, the next part will be the assessment path. So, like I've told you, in the assessment path, we will be following two methods. The first one is the default method, and that is basically an IPCC method. So they have given this formula for the calculation of the methane on a year basis. There are few assumptions that the methane generation that is being generated in 1 year, they have no relationship with the methane or the waste that is already there in the past. So if you talk about the methane generation using the default method, it takes into the account of the waste that is being produced in 1 year only. So the formula is as follows. So in this case, the CH4 is a quantity that we want to calculate in the DM method. Next is the MSW that we have calculated with the help of the population, that population from the city itself, and the part of that MSW that is reaching the landfill site, that is the MSWF part, and we will be assuming 90%. Now, since the recycling process is not upgraded in this Mohali city, so we will be assuming at 90% of the waste is reaching the disposal site. Now the methane correction factor, that again depends on the depth as per IPCC. So up to 3 meter depth of the landfill, it will be taken as 0.41 and the other values. So in this case, when we calculate the methane for a span of 2015 to 2030, that is a span of 16 years, these are the methane generation curve. So in the 2015, based on the data, based on the waste that has been there in the dump site, so it was around 1.2 gigagram, and it has reached to the maximum value by 2030 up to 1.77 gigagram. So apart from this default method that we have calculated, the next one is the modified triangular method. So basically this is the upgradation of the first order decay method of finding or estimating the methane generation or the gas generation. So in this case, if we are going to use this, So this particular method are used where the waste characterization data is not adequate. So in this case, the degradation of the waste is being uh, broken down into two parts. That is, after the deposition of the waste in the landfill site. So for the first year, there will be no emission of the methane gas, and after the 1 year duration, then the methane generation will start, and it will go to the 6th year. And the second phase, that is after from the 6th year to the 16th year, there will be a declining trend, and ultimately at the 16th year, it will be going to be zero at the 16th year. So the amount of methane gas that is being produced with this method, that is the modified triangular method, follows this trend. So in this case, if you want to find the amount of methane generated, so the area in the small triangle, like if you see in previous case, that if my mouse is working, yeah. So in this case, this particular region, or in the second case, this particular region, they are contributing. This area is equivalent to the amount of methane generated, and from that trend we have developed this graph. So in this case, the area for each triangle of the emission profile of the methane is in each year, and the highest amount of methane emission from the modified triangular method is coming out to be 2.05 gigagram for the year 2021, and the estimated amount of the methane gas that is being emitted from the MSW landfill for the span of year 2015 to 2030 is 16.2 gigagram. So on the comparative notes, this is the comparison for the both the cases. Now, default method is giving a more amount of methane gas, but in this case, the second, that is the default method, that always assume that the emission coefficient is always there, that the emission is always happening in the DM case. So if you look at the comparison between these two methods, so the estimated amount of the methane gas emitted by MSW at the landfill for the span of 16 years, that is our the duration for the study. And in that case, the default methods gives the 25.89 gigagram of methane gas, and by MTM it is 16.2 gigagram. Now the concluding remarks will be that, and as the from the population growth, that we have taken as the geometric growth, because that gives a better idea, or that gives a better estimate of the population growth. So in that case, the estimate of 810 gigagram of MSW that will be reaching in the landfill site in Mohali in next 16 years, and the potential methane estimation, that has been methane gas estimation, that we have calculated from the both the method, is this 25.88 gigagram using direct method, and by MTM it is 16.25 gigagram. Now, if this is one of the limitation that we are talking about, that the DM takes assumption that the emission coefficient is always present every year, which somehow leads to incorrect conclusion. So among the various methods, that the other methods could be the second order decay method, and the LandGem software can also be used. So among the various methods, these two methods that we have discussed here are most effective, as they are widely used because the lack of data is there, and the information related to the particulars of the waste disposal is limited. Now, the amount of gas that has been generated from these landfills, if the modern techniques can be used for recovering these methods from the landfill, uh, and the seaways can significantly reduce the amount of the methane, and this methane that has been produced can also act as a green source of energy, because if they are effectively utilized, so this will be another source of the energy, and that will be sustainable too, because at the one end, this is providing the methane for the energy use, and the second case, it is also limiting the excess of the methane gas into the environment that is causing the global warming potential. Okay, so thank you very much, and these are some of the references.
Thank you, Kaushal, for your extensive work and presenting in such a nice way. Just a suggestion from you, what kind of measures can be taken to bridge this knowledge gap between the municipality corporation people and the researchers, what they are researching, and what kind of measures and implementations can be taken so that this gap is bridged?
Like the municipality, please come again, sir.
That's if the researches or the models which we are predicting through and the measurements or the implementations which we are telling that these implementations can be done, how these bridge this gap is existing, that municipality is not applying these measures or these modeling techniques, how this kind of gap can be bridged. I'm
Yes,
just
sir,
taking
yes,
your
sir.
opinion on it.
Yeah, actually, this can easily be applied, but the size of landfill that is there. So it is one of the main reason will be the modern equipment to trap that methane gas that is coming from the landfill site. So in that case, the infrastructure requirement will be there. That let's suppose if the inorganic decomposition is going there, so the landfill can be divided into different section or like the different chambers, and from there the gases can be trapped.
So what kind of
And the second,
infrastructure we'll need then? We'll need a transportation system
no,
after
because
that.
ultimately the waste is going into the dump site. So first of all, if we can increase our recycling process, so in that case, the amount that is going, like I have told you, around 90% we are assuming that the MSW is going to the landfill site. But if the recycling and reprocessing units will be there, so that amount will be reduced significantly. And the methane generation part that is happening only because of the decomposable part, the compostable part of the MSW, that is around 50% that we have seen. So if the again if the proper aeration process is there, so it will degrade aerobically. So in that case only CO2 will be available, but since that is not possible because the layer that we are seeing, the landfill site that we have seen around in India, like in one in Delhi, that is a hill of a landfill. That has become a hill
Yeah,
type.
yeah.
So in that case, the penetration of the oxygen to the lower level, that will be very less, and in that case, the anaerobic condition will come there, and that will ultimately produce the methane gas.
Yeah, so tap that in, we can have something, some kind of transportation system made.
Actually, Dr. Tanmay, the thing is that basically the first thing that needs to be implied is, or what Mr. Kaushal is saying is, in other words, is that basically you need to segregate out the
Yeah, at the initial level you
organic
can.
part with the inorganic fraction.
Yeah.
So once you separate out the organic fraction, and
Which is
as
already
he
there.
has-
I'm asking his suggestion for the already which is there in the landfill.
yeah, if it
Not
is
for the
already
new
there in the
generation.
landfill, then we need to have a landfill gas collection system.
Yeah,
That is an
those
entirely
kind of
different.
systems I was expecting
Yeah,
from it.
landfill gas collection system we would need to do. If you don't want the waste to go to the landfill, the organic portion, then you need to have separate organic like biomethanation plant or any other plants which can generate the methane. Okay, that is the first. Second thing is, even in the inorganic fraction we have different components. For example, recyclable materials are there, like glass, cardboard, paper, plastics. So the main idea is, if you can separate, let's say, I think Mr. Kaushal showed somewhere around 47% average as compostable, and even if you take away this 15% or 20% as the total recyclable, then out of 100% you're almost removing away, let's say, 70%.
Yeah.
So your total waste coming to the landfill will be exceedingly less in terms of volume. Okay, so that also increases the lifespan of the landfill. Okay, so that is why the best or the most important thing is wherever possible, better to segregate
Bring
out
it at
this.
the initial stage. Yeah.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Kaushal, I have a couple of questions regarding the presentations.
Yes,
So
sir.
if you could come to slide number 6, I mean, just maybe you could come to slide number 6.
Yes.
Yeah, this is okay, yes, Mr. Kaushal. Slide number 7.
Okay.
Slide number 7, Mr. Kaushal. How are you calculating the waste generated in 2030? Which method of prediction are you applying for the waste, not for the methane generation? Because I
Uh,
think you have mentioned here, na, the amount of waste is estimated to be 55.16. So which method of estimation are you applying?
Sir, based on this value, like the generation, the per capita waste that we can estimate for 2020 based on this trend, and the population growth from the population census 2021. That's how right now we are having 2011. So based on that, we have used the geometric growth of the population.
Okay, so
for
you're using
this
the
year.
geometric growth rate method.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. One thing you can probably check, Mr. Kaushal, is whether other methods like incremental increase method or other methods are, because maybe logistic method, because I think already Mohali city is a developed city. So maybe you can also look into the logistic method for waste prediction. So for waste prediction, because then your methane production rate will also be different.
Yeah.
So that is
Yes, sir.
one concern that I had regarding the waste production rate, or
Okay,
means
sir.
one
Okay.
suggestion I
Basically, that was estimated based on the population growth, and for 2030 also, the waste that we are getting, that is based on the population of that particular year.
Yeah, so the
That we are
population growth is
estimating.
based on the geometric growth rate method.
Yeah, that we are taking the geometric growth rate.
So maybe Mr. Kaushal, you can have a look at the other methods and see if
Okay,
they
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can compare other methods
exactly.
also. Okay.
And slide number 8, Mr. Kaushal.
Yes, sir.
See, you have applied the MTM method, which is very good because not many of the times people use MTM method. But
Yes,
you have
sir.
already mentioned here that the waste characterization data is not adequate.
Yes,
However,
sir.
I do remember that for this particular study site, the waste characterization data is pretty adequate, as we have shown in slide number 3. Slide number where you have shown the characterization, which is slide number 5, I guess now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so your characterization is almost pretty much accurate here. So
Yes,
my
sir.
suggestion will be, you can use MTM, but since you already have the appropriate waste characterization for that particular location, it is better to use the first order model also.
Okay,
Because
sir.
I think in this particular case, a first order decay model will be much more suitable than the MTM method, particularly because you have the appropriate characterization data.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
So
sir.
that will also in another way help you, Mr. Kaushal. So you can compare the FOD with the MTM.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that is another suggestion I have, that maybe because you have the appropriate characterization data, maybe using the FOD is also is proper in this case.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so these were a couple of suggestions that I had from my side regarding
Thank you very much. They are very helpful, sir.
Most welcome, Mr. Kaushal. So now I'll invite if any of the other participants have any questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so I don't think any of the other participants are having any questions regarding the presentation made. So I'll once again thank Mr. Kaushal for his nice and well informative presentation made. Okay, and so with this, now I'd like to invite the next presenter, Dr. Geeta, whose paper ID number is 75, and she will be presenting the research paper entitled Prediction of Air Pollution Due to Mobile Sources Using Line Source Models. And the other co-authors for this research paper are M. Selvam Kumar and S. Muthulakshmi. Okay, so with this few words of introduction, I would now like to invite the presenter to present her lecture.
Sir, is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Geeta, Professor in Civil Engineering Department of Rajalakshmi Engineering College. I would like to present my work on prediction of air pollution due to mobile sources using line source models. So the presentation outline is like this. I'll just give a brief introduction of what the sources of air pollution is, the objectives of my study, the methodology I have adopted, and the experimental investigations and validation of my results.
Okay, Geeta, sorry to interrupt you.
I
Can
think
you do it full screen?
Yes, sir. I've made it, sir.
Again, it's visible only normally to us. You have maybe presented directly the PPT instead of your full screen. If you do present now and go to full screen, we will be able to see the full screen visual.
Okay, okay, sir.
You may once go out of the present now button and share again. That will help. And maybe keep your video feed also on.
Is it okay, sir?
No, again, we are able to see only your
I have some network issues, sir, because here I'm able to see my full screen.
Yeah, because you are presenting only the PPT portion. And
yes, sir.
You have to present your whole screen. There's an option called as present whole screen.
Yes, sir, I've done it, sir.
You have done present whole screen? I don't think so. That has been the case. When you press present now, then there is an option comes which says as present your entire screen.
Okay, sir, I'll do it.
Press on that. Are you able to click on that option?
Yeah, I'm able to.
Yeah. Now it's coming. Yeah. Now it's coming. Now you can just go there and make it full screen.
Is it okay, sir?
Now it's okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir. So the introduction is I'm talking about air pollution. So we know the reasons for the air pollution. We have two basic types of air pollution. One is due to the natural activities and the other one is due to anthropogenic activities. So mostly we are bothered about the second part, and we have lot of reasons for this artificial activities here. So one is burning fossil fuels due to vehicles, industries, manufacturing, and all those activities that are taking place. So as we know, we can classify the pollution as air, water, land, wastewater, and all those things. The studies on air pollution is very limited, and establishing an air monitoring station seems to be very costly, and there are very few monitoring stations across the country. As per WHO classifications, we have the sources of air pollution as stationary sources, mobile sources, and indoor sources. And as per LUTE model, we have area-based sources, point sources, and line sources. So mainly area-based sources will be based on a particular area, which may be either a commercial or an industrial or even a residential area where we are concentrating on the source. And mobile sources is mainly due to moving vehicles, the pollution that is caused due to moving vehicles. But here again, we cannot actually deliberately separate the sources as to how we can, taking an area, we cannot say the pollution is only due to line source and the pollution is only due to industry, because we do have industries by the highways and all those things. So there are a lot of uncertainties even in classifying these sources. And coming to the physics of air pollution as given by Mayer, we have 4 basic stages. So one is the emission, second one will be the transmission, next one how we are able to find out the quality of the air, and next one will be the deposition. So this have a lot of interlinked factors within it. So emissions, as we have already seen the sources for air pollution, it can be due to traffic intensity, it can be due to a factory, or it can be any other sources, even a kitchen where the exhaust is not properly maintained, will be having some air pollution contributing to it. So coming to transmission, we have a lot of parameters linked with the transmission. So main thing is meteorology. So the air temperature, the wind speed, the humidity, the seasonal variations. Next thing will be the chemistry, and all these things collectively lead to the dispersion and dilution of the pollutants in the ambient air. And finally, the residues that are left in the air, which is not dispersed in a uniform manner, or which just settles down somewhere, or it is still remaining in the air, we call it as an ambient air pollution. And we have a lot of standards which says that when it goes beyond this level, we call the air to be polluted. And finally, the deposition, it depends upon the weather, dry, wet, and humid. So we also have a classification for the air pollutants, primary air pollutants and secondary air pollutants. So the primary air pollutants, generally we relate this with the health hazards, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, particulate matter. And secondary air pollutants, due to the combination of this with the environmental effects, we have ozone pan, photochemical smog, and aerosols. Generally, when we talk about study on air pollutions, we are mainly concerned with the primary air pollutants. So we tend to measure the particulate matter, which can be total suspended particulate matter, respirable particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and carbon monoxide. So the methodology of my studies, actually we were working with the Pollution Control Board, wherein we had an extension of this national highway. I'm basically from the outskirts of Chennai, where we have a lot of industrial SIPCOTs and industrial estates located in this area. It is actually a 4-lane road with 2 lanes having one way on either direction. So they wanted to go for an extension of the road. So they were doing a traffic count, and they also want to make a rearrangement of the signaling system, where they would come across a lot of congestion in traffics. And so we had 3 major classification in the study. One was regarding the vehicle count. Second one was finding out the area wherein the road can be extended for a lane on either side. And the third one was with the respect to the air pollution. So this is the study area, and these are the 5 stations we had selected. So S1 actually starts, it's actually a ring road, and S1 starts in a place where we have a junction of 4 roads starting here, and this is the particular road that we have taken for our study. We have selected 5 stations here, and each were approximately at a station at a distance of 4.5 to 5 kilometers apart. And the study was, this is the windrows diagram, and this windrows diagram was plotted based on the data that were taken on a daily data, and it was actually taken from the meteorology department. We did not take the wind direction or the data with respect to wind and temperature practically in the field. It was actually collected from the respective department. And the objective of the study is, in this particular area we had chosen, we were considered about 3 major pollutants: total suspended particulate matter, respirable particulate matter, and carbon monoxide. So the main objective of this particular study is, we cannot have as I mentioned in my introduction, we cannot have monitoring stations everywhere, because it is very costly in establishing a high volume sampler and having all these monitoring equipments in order to monitor the air pollution on a daily basis. So when and where we need to get the air pollution, suppose we find that the area is very polluted, we could actually make a correlation between the measured data, and there are a lot of line source models that are available. So the major objective of this paper is, we need to find out the best fit line source model. We have a lot of line source models, which I'll be discussing in the previous slides. So the best fit line source model, which is very close to the observed data, can be chosen just by getting the traffic count and the emission data, and the other parameters, we will be able to get the pollutant concentrations rather than going for costly equipments and so. So this is the whole objective of this paper. So we have monitored the data in these 5 stations on a regular basis over I think 6 months period, and then we have plotted the data. The monitor data have been plotted, and then we have modeled the data using 2 types of line source models, and then we have found the correlation. We have found which model actually suits better. So this is the monitor data here. We have taken the variation from June to December, and the average data is also plotted here. So for total suspended particulate matter, I would like to mention in detail about the study area. Though it is a highway, it has a lot of colleges situated along the road, and also it has a lot of industrial companies there. We have a Hyundai factory, we have a lot of Saint Gobind. It's actually a hub of all the factories in Chennai. So that was the area, and here again, as I told, there are a lot of limitations with respect to air pollution. We cannot quantify the air pollution. Mainly this is due to only line source, mainly this is due to only industries and so. So that was one big challenge here, since we had industries lying very close to the highways. We had a little bit problem in handling the data here. So this is the data that is with respect to total suspended particulate matter. And we had used some digital equipments that were supplied by the Pollution Control Board. We had the data in terms of numerals. We only had the value of recording the data that was visible on the screen. And parallelly, we had people to take the count of the vehicles passing in that particular station. So parallelly, when we were taking the monitored data, we also had the vehicle count. We classified the vehicles as two-wheelers, light motor vehicles, and because we had a lot of container traffic in that road, we also classified the container vehicles also. The traffic count was also taken here as a part of the monitored data. Though the monitored data here pertains only to the data that we have taken from the equipment, we also had the vehicle count for us to fit in the model. So the maximum data was around 153 for total suspended particulate matter, and it was around 70 to 75 for respirable particulate matter. It depends upon the stations, as the stations I've shown in the location of the stations in my previous slides. And we have also taken the carbon monoxide data, which is given here. So actually the maximum value was around 15 ppm as given here. And the 2 models we have used here are the GFLSM, General Finite Line Source Model. So here, this is the equation. I have given the explanation for the equation here. The GFLSM, actually it is a known model which has been lately used even from the 70s. Luhar and Patel were actually the person who have introduced us to this line source models here. And this is the relationship between the wind line and the line source coordinate system as given by the General Finite Line Source Model. And improvised version of GFLSM was taken over by the professors at IIT Delhi, Kare and Sharma. So they have devised a model just eliminating the error function as that is given in the lines, because here we can see a bigger equation here, which has a lot of calculations that goes into it. So the next equation, they made it a simpler version of it by eliminating the error function. So this was the equation that was given by Kare and Sharma. So we had adopted both the models for calculating. So here this Q, which is the emission rate per unit length, this is which record the traffic count. Other things we had taken from the data that were available with us. That is the source, the distance of the source from the center line of the line source, and the length of the line source. All those things we had taken from the measurement of the road. And here I've just correlated the data here. So I've made a correlation between the monitored data, that is the observed data, and the predicted data. So the first thing for the total suspended particulate matter, the R squared value for the GFLSM was around 0.78. But whereas for Delhi Finite Line Source Model, it was 0.93. And similarly for RPM, for respirable particulate matter also, the Delhi Finite Line Source Model proved to be better predicted than the GFLSM model. And similarly for the carbon monoxide also, we had a better prediction with respect to the Delhi line source model. So the conclusion is, actually, since the project was taken up in order to find out the essentials in and submitting a report for the widening of the roads and all those things, we were also asked to give some suggestions along with the reports here. So we found out that certain areas were very congested, and the stations we chose here, the particular point of monitoring also we chose where we were able to see that there were some deviations in the road, or where there was some U-turns, and where there was a branch out roads from the main road, in order to take the containers to the parking lots, or in order to take the container to the nearby factory or so, whatever it is. So whenever there was a turn in the container or so, there was a hell a lot of traffic that was stagnant along the road. So they also asked us to give certain points where they could ease the traffic in order to prevent this congestion also. So we were also able to give some points where we need some signals. So actually there were absolutely no signals, though it was a national highway housing so many traffic set. There were very limited signals in that particular road. So we also suggested to have some signals in order to make this regularization in the traffic. And second thing is mainly the concentration of the pollutants were actually mapped with the air pollution, the wind velocity, and the temperature, and all those things. We were able to find that though it was between June to December, we had very marginal variation between June to December, because the traffic of the vehicle were very continuous, and also the shoulders, when there was a traffic, we were able to find that the people who are traveling in a four-wheeler like a car or something, they tend to take the shoulders. So dust accumulation was very high, except due to some rainy seasons or so. And the time of our observation was from 7 to 7. So we were able to cover the highest density of the traffic. That is, we were able to take up the cover all the parts, that is light traffic, heavy traffic, and also the medium traffic. So we were able to get a clear idea of the pollutant concentrations in that particular stretch of road. Actually, we had a stretch even till the end of the highways, but here in this paper, I have presented only with respect to, because the other stations were taken a little higher, longer than what we had taken for these 5 stations. And finally, from the results, we could see that the Delhi finite line source model had a good correlation with observed data, and moreover the calculation with respect to DFLSM was also easy when we tried to model it with GFLSM. So it was better to have an easier model, and the model which had a very close correlation with the monitored data. Thank you. These are the references that I have referred for the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta, for a nice and informative presentations. A lot of this work brings me back to some of the work that I had done in air quality modeling a long time back during my PhD. So thanks for reminding me this GFLSM and DFLSM model.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, what you could probably look into is there is also one IIT line source model that has been developed.
Yes, sir. I have done that also, sir. But due to limitation in this
Yes.
paper for submitting the conference, I was actually supposed to remove that particular model. Actually, what we have done is 3 models: IIT line source
LSM
model and
and
finite line source model.
Okay.
Sir, I was not
Ma'am,
able to
if you look
correlate.
into the literature, I have one model where there is a combination of both the GFLSM and the IIT LSM. The idea is that all of these models, they do not take into conditions if you have parallel wind conditions or means calm
Yes,
conditions.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can
So
I have that model, sir?
I have a hybrid model, a prediction model that works well in that condition, in calm conditions.
Sir, can I have the name of that model, sir?
I'll send you the details.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So now coming back, ma'am, the other thing that I want to say is, ma'am, you only determined your predictions with respect to R, correlation coefficient.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, ma'am, correlation coefficient is only used in air quality modeling for short-term, means it is a short-term model performance analysis.
Yes, yes, sir.
Generally, you have other performance indexes like mean, standard deviations, and normal. But
Yes,
your
sir.
index of agreement, fractional bias, the normalized mean square error, randomized mean square error. So, ma'am, these are some of the other statistics through which you should also check the application
Sure,
of
sir.
the suitability of the models.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
And another thing is, ma'am, now that these are all analytical models, but nowadays a lot of numerical models are also in play. For example, AirMod is there, and if you apply AirMod, or if in ADMS Urban, even Caline 4, okay, ma'am. So,
Yes,
so a lot of these analytical models are now almost means have lost its existence. Another model I can tell you that has been developed is by the Finnish Meteorological Institute FMI, which is CAR FMI,
Yes,
which
sir.
also incorporates the IIT LSM model in their modification. The CAR FMI model is also a modification of the general finite like GFLSM model.
Okay, sir.
That
Sir,
was also,
how about CalPUF, sir?
yes, so I'm coming to that also. There are CalPUF. See, CalPUF. The difference in CalPUF is that CalPUF is primarily used for industrial sources rather
Yes,
than
sir.
for
Point
your
sources. Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes,
rather
sir.
than for line sources or vehicular sources or mobile sources. So a lot of these applications, ma'am, make sense nowadays. But one of the critical questions that you are going to get, ma'am, in future is that why not use AirMod or any sophisticated models?
Okay. Okay, sir.
Because nowadays there is a tendency for using more sophisticated models. The idea behind that is that sophisticated models have more better inputs, so even they can condition model for ma'am, let's say calm conditions, or even if there is a lot of different sources. For example, you said that this is also a factory site, right, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
along with industrial source, you have line source. So
Yes.
now your sources are a combination of line source and point sources. So in that case, maybe AirMod or CalPUF could be better
CalPUF,
models
yes, sir.
because they can take into account the effect of both.
Yes, sir.
Whereas these line source models are basically for vehicular conditions.
Yes, sir.
So as you mentioned, ma'am, that in your area you have a lot of industry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so maybe the application of these models are only partly justified.
Okay. Okay,
Because
sir.
if you have a lot of industry, you have to use some models to get the emissions arising out from industry also.
Yes, sir.
So right in those cases, ma'am, use of those models like CalPUF, AirMod, maybe ADMS, so are the more preferred models when the sources are intermixed.
Okay, sir.
Okay, ma'am. So
Okay, sir.
that is something that probably you could look into.
Sure, sir. Definitely, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So I
Thank you,
think those were just some couple of suggestions from my side.
That is
So
very useful, sir. Thank you, sir.
thank you, ma'am. So now I would like to invite Dr. Tanmay to.
Yes, so you are on mute, but
This was the last presentation. Yes, over to you, Dr. Tanmay.
so thank you once again to all the participants. This has been a really wonderful session throughout the day. All of you have patiently given your presentations and very wonderfully enlightened us also, especially me, because I am from the structures field. I got a lot of new knowledge today on air and water pollutions specifically. So that has been a great session from all the participants and with enlightenment of Dr. Rajiv Ganguly throughout the session. So with this, we come to the ending of our ICCME presentations in this track. So now we will request you to join us for the valedictory function at 5 p.m. The link is given in the chat box. We'll be announcing the best paper award for this sessions and all the other sessions in the ceremony. So all of you are invited, and once again we thank all of you, Dr. Rajiv Ganguly, to be present here and have such a nice discussions throughout the day.
Thank you, Dr. Tanmay. So before we wrap up the session, if any of the participants have any feedback to give regarding the overall conduct of the conference, any suggestions, anything which you think would make the conferences in the coming conferences better, we would always like your suggestions and advices. So if any of the participants would like to share their thoughts or their any other details, might please do so.
Yeah, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so sir, this was one of my first conference ever. like as I'm a BTech student in Amrita. Like I did a paper based on the Vembanad Lake.
Yes.
So the instructions and the details that were given to you were quite like good for me to to understand what the future holds, like what we can do in the future and all. So like I would like to thank you in that first. And second, I think that everything went well only, but if it would have been like in personal, it would have been more like better. That is like happen every time.
Surely that was the effort of the conference.
That was our initial plan only,
Yeah.
and as you might have listened in the keynote lecture also during our organizer, Dr. Saurabh Rawat, he had said that. But because of the prevailing circumstances, we are unable to do it in the physical form. But that is definitely something there in our mind to do it somewhere in the coming future when things are a little bit better. So we can all again have a physical interaction with all of you present, and we can discuss these things on a face-to-face basis.
These feedbacks will help us to do the next iteration, which will be most surely in the person-to-person mode rather than a virtual mode.
Virtual mode.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I would just like to share a few words. So, one positive thing I would like to contribute as my feedback is I have attended a lot of conferences, presented my work. Generally, we would have queries from what we have done. So, this is the first of its kind that I had seen suggestions from the chairs saying that the work could be improvised in this way, and there are these methods that can be taken up to improvise your work and all those things. I'm really thankful to Rajiv sir and the coordinators here, because even though you had given me suggestion for just 2 minutes, I have taken notes of around half page, sir, which would definitely be helpful for me in my future work, sir. So this is one of the, I would say the highlight of this conference, sir. Usually we get questions from only what we had presented, and we would be given time to actually answer the queries that have been given by the chairs. So I really thank the chairs for having so patiently listened to all our presentations, and also have given your comments for our improvisations. For all the papers I have attended last track and this track, I was able to see suggestions in each and every paper, either from sir, from the co-chair and the chair. Thank you very much for this way of handling this conference, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your nice words of suggestion, and so this will also help us to improve further when we further make further conferences. So, any other of the participants would like to share any of their feedbacks?
Yes, sir. Sir, one suggestion from my side is I wanted to listen all the papers in the conference, but yesterday what happened? There were three tracks on the same time, so I used two devices and listened all the papers on the same time, which
great.
was a bit confusing. But as I want to know various topics trending, so I do that. But this is one request.
One thing is that anyways this proceeding is coming in Springes, so you will get access from that from all the papers. And if you want to still listen to the presentations, you can talk to the chair, Dr. Rawat, if he can make the recordings available to you in this regards. So you can even listen to the presentations by that way. Otherwise, whole book is coming, which will be in publication very soon. So all of your names will be there, and all full-length papers will be there.
Because all topics are very interesting, and it is good to hear from various students and faculties. Thank you, sir, for this.
Yes. Once again, I'd like to invite you all for our next endeavor in this conference series, which will be happening in November. That conference will majorly focus on structures, constructions, and materials. There also you can get such nice presentations. We have already receiving a number of papers in them, and that will be also published by Scopus with Springer's book collection, lecture notes collection. If any other participant has any other feedback, and Ganguly sir has something to say.
Yes, Dr. Tanmay, in that regards only, I think Dr. Tanmay today in the morning also mentioned that he will be our abstract submission will again reopen. So
Yeah, I will reopen the abstract
yeah,
submission
so
date.
like if you are further interested in in maybe 5 months or 6 months time, if you think that you will have made some significant progress in your research, maybe again you can take this opportunity to present your work, and then we can again make a discussion and have a discussion regarding this. So just to let you know that the abstract submission is not closed, and it will again reopen in a couple of days time. So in any of the time, if you have any if you want to submit any other paper, or you want to get in touch with regarding that conference, you can contact Dr. Tanmay. Okay, and if any of the participants wants to get in touch with any of the faculty members or any coaches regarding any help regarding the material, our email ID is always available in the university website, so you can even contact them regarding the conferences or any other issues. Okay, so does any other participant has anything that they would like to share?
Sir, I just want to thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, to present our work on international level and giving us such productive suggestions. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ina, for your nice words of encouragement, because that will only help us to do better in our forthcoming conferences.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to share some feedback? Who is here? Okay, I think Dr. Tanmay, I think with that we can wrap up this session.
Yes, sir.
So once again, on behalf of myself and Dr. Tanmay, we thank all the participants. It was a very enriching experience for us, for both of us, both yesterday and today. We came to know of a lot of different work that has been carried out by the students, not only in one field, but in a combination of different fields, materials, environment, structures. Okay, how they can be done. Okay, and the main feedback that I could take back from over the presentations that I heard is that a lot of this work will have significance in the coming years. You see, many of the time when you do the work, you'd feel that this work is not having any significance right now, but don't get disheartened by that fact, because in the coming years, these sort of technologies, these sort of applications, and these sort of outside the box thinking will be very, very important. Okay, so that is one thing that I have seen, is that I've come across a lot of the papers that I have gone through or I've listened to in this conference. Okay, so all the best to the participants, okay, for your future research and for your future plans. Okay, so I think with this vote of thanks from my side and also from Dr. Tanmay, I think we can wrap up today's session. Okay.
Hope to see you in the valedictory session, all of you, at 5 p.m.
Yes, please join at the valedictory session. So thank you, participants, once again. Thank you.
Thank you.